war against Greenland.
Hello and welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Israel says its military has recovered the remains of the final Gaza hostage, Ran Greeley. US President Donald Trump has hailed the mission on his Truth Social account as well. The United Nations has welcomed the return of the last Gaza hostage remains and offers condolences to the family. UN spokesperson says full ceasefire implementation in Gaza is critical and urges all sides to act now. US President Donald Trump raises tariffs on South Korean autos, lumber, and pharmaceuticals to 25%. He says Seoul's parliament failed to approve a trade deal and is not living up to commitments. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says some federal immigration agents will begin leaving the city from Tuesday. This follows a call with President Trump where Mayor Frey says the president agreed the situation cannot continue and that progress is now underway. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will visit China from January 29 to 31st in the first such trip by UK's leader since 2018. Testing Labour's push for a pragmatic reset. However, the visit is shadowed by sensitive issues including human rights in Hong Kong and Xinjiang, the Ukraine war, Huawei's role in UK infrastructure, and many more. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the next Ukraine-Russia talks are expected on February 1st, but adds the meeting should happen sooner. He stresses that Ukraine needs real results from diplomacy, not Russia postponing again. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says Europe has shown strength and unity over Greenland. She adds the issue is about democratic principles, national integrity, and Europe standing firm on its identity. French National Assembly approves a ban on social media for children under 15, citing mental health risks and online bullying. President Macron hails this ban as a major step. Now for this hour, we start with breaking news coming in from India. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced a major free trade agreement between India and the European Union, describing it as a landmark deal with huge potential. The agreement is expected to create significant opportunities for people in both India and Europe, strengthening economic ties between the two regions. Modi has highlighted that the deal represents a quarter of the global GDP and a third of the world trade, showing the scale of this partnership. He has also noted that the agreement complements other trade deals with Britain and the EFTA, reinforcing India's commitment to democracy, rule of law, and strong global economic partnerships. After nearly 2 decades of negotiations, India and the European Union are all set to announce the historic trade deal today at the 16th India-EU Summit. The summit will be co-chaired by the President of the European Council, Antonio Luis Santos da Costa, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who are presently on a state visit to India and have attended India's 77th Republic Day ceremony as chief guests. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Sharad Kohli. He is a senior economist, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Kohli, for joining us. Great to have you. How significant is this? What more can you tell us about this exciting news?
Greetings, Asuma, to you and NewsX World viewers. A landmark deal indeed, as Prime Minister Modi of India rightly said, it's quarter of world GDP, 1/3 of the global trade. And, the deal comes in the backdrop of the American onslaught of tariffs. Well, European Union also has been the victim of tariffs because of Greenland and various other reasons. And I think the deal is mother of all deals, as it is being termed as. And it's not for no reason that it's been called as mother of all deals, because 27 nations coming together. One, as European Union doing the deal with India, 186 to 188 billion dollars, assume as the total size of trade being done by the two countries at this point of time. It is important to note, Suma, that the European market was dominated by Chinese goods. China had literally covered the entire Europe and has been dumping its goods at sometimes at very competitive prices. And the Indian exporters tried to make a foothold. They found that because of the tariffs, the prices were not competitive enough. And now with this deal, you will find 90% of although the announcements are yet to come, probably in a very short time, you will hear a press conference. But I'm very hopeful that more than 90% of the items are going to become tariff-free, which would mean that Indian goods in Europe are going to become very, very competitive in terms of prices. So that will provide a big boost to the Indian exporters who have lost business because of the American onslaught 50% tariffs being levied by America. The list is very long: textiles, leather, footwear, gems and jewelry, pharmaceuticals, chemical, engineering goods. I think that the list is very long, and I'm hoping that Indian goods, as with the flux of time, they will become more and more in demand in Europe. As far Europe is concerned, beverages, automobiles, defense equipment. Prime Minister Modi has already spoken about the defense partnership as far as Europe is concerned. So I think it's a good answer to President Trump that if he doesn't want to deal with the world can find its own way. We find the world huddling together. In fact, we have some reason to thank President Trump, because for 19 years this deal was stuck, and the world seems to be huddling up because he wants to alienate himself. He wants to bully the world. He wants to isolate America. He wants to dictate terms on America. We saw another tariff being levied on South Korea. And by the way, South Korea was one of the very dear partners of America, amongst the first countries in July 2025 to have entered into a trade deal. And now they face 25% tariffs instead of 15% tariff. Canada, under threat of facing 100% tariffs just because they want to do a deal with China. I'm not sure what President Trump, how he's weaponizing tariff as a tool against the world. But what I definitely know is that it's going to land America in a very deep economic trouble. The debt to GDP ratio of America is 130%, $38 trillion of debt. It's going to create a mess around in America. As far as India, EU is concerned, I think it's a win-win situation. The European Union is going to find a huge middle-class market here of 650 to 700 million people. Adding to that the neo-middle class. I mean, it's a big market, and I'm sure European Union is more excited than India as far as the deal is concerned, Asuma.
Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Kohli for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to U.S. The White House has stated that U.S. President Donald Trump does not want to see people hurt or killed on the streets of the United States. The comment comes after the deadly shooting of the Minnesota man by a federal agent, which the administration has described as a tragedy. In response to the incident, the White House has criticized Democratic leaders in Minnesota, particularly over the state's sanctuary city policies. The White House has also made it clear that enforcing immigration laws will remain a central focus for the administration despite the controversy surrounding the incident in Minneapolis. Let's in fact listen into some comments from the White House.
I would also like to address the chaotic scenes in Minnesota over the weekend. Nobody in the White House, including President Trump, wants to see people getting hurt or killed in America's streets. This includes Renee Good, Alex Preddy, the brave men and women of federal law enforcement, and the many Americans who have been victimized at the hands of illegal alien criminals. Saturday's shooting remains under active investigation by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI. But let's be clear about the circumstances which led to that moment on Saturday. This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Colonel Sanjit Sirohi. He is an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for joining us again. Thank you very much. Now looking at this, what are the implications of this federal government's defense towards the ICE operations and the shooting that's taken place earlier this month? What are they trying to do with their, hurting reputation?
Well, Asuma, thank you very much for inviting me on your channel and discussing something very, very important and very, very deplorable because on 7th January, one American citizen was shot,
Yes.
and on 20, Alex Pretty was the next person who was shot. Now, there is a lot of controversy what the White House advisor is talking about, that the person was a domestic terrorist and he was carrying a gun. Firstly, how he was a domestic terrorist, that has not been understood. And secondly, even if he was carrying the gun, he was a legal owner of that gun. He had a permit. And the videos shows that he was carrying that gun, and once the gun was taken away from him, then he was shot down. So it is not understood why he was shot down when the gun, which was, the people are talking that was he was trying to assassinate the a federal agent. Then when the gun was already snatched from him, how he was trying to assassinate, that is a big question. Now this campaign, which is immigration enforcement campaign, is the most aggressive and the largest campaign in the history of America. And on the one hand, Donald Trump is blaming the Democrats. Democrat governor has said that it is brutalizing, it is organized brutality. And the mayor has said that this immigration or enforcement agent should be withdrawn. Because unless you have a patience in yourself and you have the humanitarian angle in your mind, then I think whatever is happening in Minneapolis is absolutely incorrect. See the hypocrisy of Mr. Donald Trump. On the one hand, he is calling the Iranian protesters as a patriots, and he is ready to help them. And on the other hand, the American protesters who are protesting, he has got no concern from them. So I think this is very, very sad story. And I think the best thing now is that this force immediately should be withdrawn. And until things calm down, they should not go ahead with this campaign. Asuma.
And Colonel, so what do you think, how can President Trump gain back the popularity or votes that he's been losing throughout, especially through enforcing immigration enforcement?
Asuma, that's what I am saying, that this is becoming counterproductive for Mr. Donald Trump. The action which they are taking and the intention of the administration of Mr. Donald Trump is absolutely right. I am not denying that.
Yes.
There are about 11 to 13 million illegal immigrants in America, and every country has the right to apprehend them and deport them to their native country or original country. So there is no doubt on that. We are not denying that. But the point is the aggressive way the immigrant agents are taking, or they are trying to control the tactics in an aggressive behavior. That is what is triggering all these protests which are taking place. So the intention is all right. Only thing, the method being used is totally aggressive, and it is like terrorizing the people. The whole community is being terrorized. So the best way forward is that for the time being, this operation should be slowed down, let things cool down, and after that, taking other measures, then again it could be started if Mr. Donald Trump administration was to start that. Asuma.
Thank you for highlighting that, Colonel. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our later discussion as well. Now, we stay in U.S. Israel's President Isaac Herzog has marked a key moment with the removal of the yellow chair from the president's residence. For the last 843 days, this chair had symbolized the empty seat left by hostages, including the last one, Ran Gwili. With his return, Herzog's action marked the end of the hostage crisis in Israel. Herzog, alongside U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, has thanked U.S. President Donald Trump for his role in securing the release. The White House has also praised President Trump's efforts. Let's listen into what Press Secretary Kathleen Leavitt has shared in this regard.
As you all saw, the last remaining body of the hostages, Israeli hostages in Gaza, has been returned. This is a huge foreign policy feat for the President of the United States, for the State of Israel, and frankly, for the whole world. The President made the impossible possible. And so it's great news for the President, for the United States, for our allies, and also for peace in the Middle East. And I understand that more than 20 new additional countries have also signed up to join the newly established Board of Peace with respect to the rebuilding of Gaza, which is another historic accomplishment for this president.
Moreover, the United Nations has welcomed the hostage recovery process. Spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric has expressed condolences to Gwili's family while also calling for the full implementation of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. Let's listen in.
A number of you had asked me about the reports about the remains of the last Israeli hostage, Ron Givli, having been recovered. And I can tell you that we, of course, welcome that development. We extend our condolences to his family. The full implementation of the ceasefire arrangements in Gaza is absolutely critical.
Meanwhile, the family of Ran Givli, Israeli last hostage who was held in Gaza, has paid their last tributes to the fallen soldier. In a statement outside their home in Meitar, Givli's family has thanked Israeli security forces and, more notably, U.S. President Donald Trump for their efforts in bringing him home. Let's listen into what they have shared.
ראשית, אני רוצה להודות לכם גם לכל התקשורת שליוותה אותנו בשנתיים האחרונות. אני חושבת שזה שנה שהגאווה הרבה יותר חזקה מהעצב. אנחנו עם ישראל חי וחזק, ואנחנו באמת רוצים להודות פה לכולם. לכל אלה שעזרו ותמכו ונתנו לנו כל כך הרבה כוחות במהלך השנתיים ו4 חודשים האלה. והנה, סגרנו מעגל, רני חזר הביתה, גיבור ישראל, באמת גיבור ישראל, ואנחנו הכי גאים בו בעולם. תודה לכם.
עכשיו חזרתי מהעוטף וקיבלתי את רני, חיבקתי אותו. אני חושב שאם רני, הייתם שואלים אותו איך הוא היה רוצה ללכת, זה הדרך. זה הדרך שלו וזה הכבוד. אני חושב הוא הציל אותנו, הוא הציל את עם ישראל, הוא הציל את הקיבוץ הלאומים, הוא הציל את כולם, ועכשיו נתנו לו את הכבוד שבאמת מגיע לו מכל עם ישראל.
הוא מאחד את
העם. הוא מאחד את עם ישראל.
Okay, so we want to thank to President Trump, Witkoff, Kushner, and all the people behind the scenes. We are so grateful to bring Ran home and your success. Mr. President, when you look at our eyes and you said, we're going to bring Ran home, and you promise us, and we believe you, and we're thankful for this, and I want to thank for everyone who helped us.
Gwili had been held in Gaza for over 840 days before his remains were finally recovered. This move is reportedly expected to help reopen the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt. Now we've moved the focus on to Europe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the next round of U.S. brokered talks with Russia is expected on February 1st in the UAE. He has added that it would be good if the meeting could be brought forward, signaling Kyiv's push for faster diplomatic progress. Zelensky has said that his delegation just returned from the latest trilateral talks, which for the first time in a while included both American and Russian representatives. The teams discussed key military and strategic issues, including steps to end the war and mechanisms for real control and monitoring. He has stressed that Ukraine is preparing fully for the next round of discussions and hopes the talks will deliver concrete results, not delays. Zelensky has emphasized the need for real outcomes from diplomacy, warning against Russia postponing once again. While the Ukrainian president has called on all parties to focus on practical solutions to achieve peace and ensure proper oversight on the ground.
Доповіді нашої делегації з Америки Рустем Умєров доповідав по зустрічах з представниками президента Трампа. Було вже кілька раундів перемовин. Працюють над документами, які потрібні для закінчення війни. Важливо, що українська команда повністю інформує американську сторону про те, що відбувається в Україні, та про постійні російські удари по нашій енергосистемі. Якщо б росіяни дійсно серйозно хотіли закінчення війни, вони б зосередились на дипломатії, а не на ракетних атаках, не на блекаутах та спробах завдати шкоди навіть нашим атомним станціям. У нас є дані щодо об'єктів, по яких Росія робила розвідку для ударів. Все чітко говорить про те, що дипломатія для Росії точно не пріоритет.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Colonel Sanjay Sirohi. He's joining us as international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for staying with us. Now looking at this, as we see Zelensky urging the talks in particular to be held earlier than planned, can we expect something concrete? What do you think Zelensky has?
Asuma, Mr. Zelensky is looking at the campaign which is going on. Now, if the talks are going to be held on 1st February, so we have got another 4 or 5 days before the talks are being held. And during these 4 or 5 days, the way the Russian offensive is going on, he is skeptical that in these 4 or 5 days, the Russians will be able to take over more territory because they have already taken one more village yesterday. So I think why he is hurrying this is that so that as soon as the peace talks are held, then the territory, whatever he could save, could be saved. So that is I think the urgency. And secondly, he also knows that if there is any delay in these talks, then the Russians may back out, and then it will be a problem for Zelensky and the Europe. So his only concern is that these talks should take place because so far nothing concrete has happened. So far they have already discussed the parameters for ending the war and further logic of the negotiation process. So the basic issues which still remains are the territory, which remains the key issue, and the security guarantee which Ukraine is looking for. So these two aspects have not been negotiated, they have not been agreed to. So Mr. Zelensky is in hurry that these talks to take place as early as possible so that the Russians are not able to occupy more territory the way their campaign is going on. Asuma.
Thank you for highlighting that. So as you rightfully highlighted that the basic issues still remain. So what exactly could be the reason for Zelensky to make haste for the next negotiations other than the territory that could be gained more by Russia?
Because firstly we must understand there is a mistrust between Ukraine and the Russians. They are not trusting each other. It is only the Americans who are in between and they are trying to get the negotiation forward. So I think the Zelensky also knows that if something goes wrong, then Russians will back out from the peace process and then they will again start advancing towards the Ukraine because the Donbas region, which is 80 to 90% of the region, is already under the Russian occupation. So if the delay is there, then maybe that the complete Donbas will go in favor of Russia. So I think that is the main urgency because he is not trusting because as he said, the Russians may back out from the peace process. And if they back out, then there will be more problems for Ukraine. Asuma.
Right. Now focusing on the location per se, why do you think this time it's in UAE? Why not Turkey or Alaska anymore?
Well, as far as the UAE is concerned, it is normally a neutral nation which has got nothing at stakes in this war. So you see the most of the talks, which are peace talks, are taking place in UAE only. So I don't think there is anything particular about it. Maybe it is acceptable to all the three negotiators who are working on this. So I don't think place is anything to do with this thing. Maybe the one reason could be that the Russians are not very comfortable in going to any of the places in Europe. So that is, I think, maybe the neutral place. So that's why they have agreed for UAE. Asuma.
With that, I would like to thank Colonel Sanjay Sirohi for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Europe. Europe has been warned by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte that it cannot defend itself without the United States, saying anyone who thinks otherwise should keep on dreaming. Meanwhile, a strong U.S. military presence in Europe along with the nuclear umbrella was reaffirmed as essential for European security. Furthermore, President Trump's Arctic and Greenland strategy was praised, while it was emphasized that no negotiations were conducted on behalf of Denmark or Greenland. However, concerns remain as two work streams involving Greenland, including Arctic defense talks, are being continued by NATO and US officials. It was stressed that Europe would need to increase defense spending and build nuclear capabilities to become independent, as current pledges of 5% of GDP are deemed insufficient. Meanwhile, China and Russia were also highlighted as emerging threats to Arctic security and reinforcing the need for transatlantic cooperation. Now we move on to India. Health authorities in China are on high alert as a deadly Nipah virus outbreak spreads in India's eastern state of West Bengal. The bat-borne virus has been detected near Kolkata, India, prompting urgent quarantines and contact traces. According to reports, 3 new infections have been reported this week, including cases among healthcare workers, as officials rush to contain the outbreak. Nipah virus primarily affects the lungs and brain, causing fever, headache, confusion, and in severe cases, coma, with a mortality rate exceeding 40%. Meanwhile, China has placed the Nipah virus under surveillance and other major infectious diseases ahead of the Lunar New Year, when millions will be traveling. According to reports, authorities in India continue to monitor the situation closely to prevent further spread and protect public health. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.